Hello students, myself Jinalisha welcomes you on behalf of Saraswat International Academy. Today we will begin with the next part of the chapter Principles of Inheritance and Variation. Now students, in the previous videos we have studied regarding the Mendel's monohybrid experiment as well as we have studied Mendel's dihybrid experiment along with the certain conclusions derived from it. Say for example, the conclusion derived from the Mendel's monohybrid experiment was the law of dominance and the law of segregation. Similarly, the conclusion derived from the conclusion derived from the dihybrid experiment was the law of independent assortment. Now there were some you can say exceptions to the law of the dominance. That exceptions were codominance and incomplete dominance. That also we have studied in detail. Now today students, we will be beginning with the chromosomal theory of inheritance. So students, Mendel he published his work basically in 1865. When did he publish his work? He published his work in 1865. But till 1900 his work remained unrecognized. Though his work was discovered in 1865, though he published his work in 1865, but till 1900 his work remained unrecognized. So, why Mendel's work on inheritance remained unrecognized till 1900? What are the reasons? So students, this is very important for your board questions as well as for your NEET. So there are several reasons why Mendel work remained unrecognized. So first reason why Mendel work remained unrecognized was the communication was not easy as it is now in those days, and his work could not be widely publicized. So first reason why Mendel's work remained unrecognized was the communication problem. Communication in those days was not easy as it is now. Now we have various means of communication, but in those days there were not many means of communication. So communication was not easy, and as communication was not easy, he could not widely publicize his work. So this is the first reason why Mendel work remained unrecognized till 1900. Now student, the second reason for his unrecognition is his concept of genes or factors. Factors was called by Mendel, and these factors are now called as genes. So his concept of genes or factors as a stable and discrete units that control the expression of the traits and pair of alleles which do not blend with each other was not acceptable by his contemporaries as an explanation for apparently continuous variation which is seen in nature. Now student, what Mendel said? So basically he told that the genes are the genes, or you can say factors are the stable and discrete unit which control the expression of a trait or a character. What Mendel told? He told that a particular character, for a particular character there is a gene or a factor. So a factor or a gene is responsible for the expression of the character. And he also said that these alleles, they do not blend, they do not mix with each other. Now this concept was not accepted by his contemporaries. Why it was not accepted by his contemporaries? Because they didn't get the explanation of the variation which was continuously seen in the nature. There was a continuous process of variation seen in nature, right? Varieties were seen, varieties of organisms were seen, varieties of species were seen. So variation took place which was responsible for evolution. Now, what Mendel said? Mendel said that characters are controlled by genes and these genes or a pair of alleles, they do not blend. This was not accepted by his contemporaries because variations were continuously seen in nature. And if variations are seen, how is it possible that there won't be the blending? So he could not provide the proof for this particular thing. The third reason for Mendel's work remaining unrecognized is his approach of using mathematics to explain the biological phenomena, which was totally new and unacceptable to the biologists of his time. Now students, we have studied Mendel monohybrid experiment, we have studied dihybrid experiment. So in that experiments, he used what? Mathematical and statistical data. So the use of the mathematical data, he gave the genotypic ratio, he gave the phenotypic ratio. So he used the mathematical as well as the statistical data to prove some biological phenomena. To prove some biological phenomena, what Mendel used? He used the mathematical and statistical data. This was not accepted. That was totally new during that time, and it was not accepted by the biologists of that time. The use of the mathematical approach to prove some biological phenomena, it was not accepted by the biologists at that time. So that was one of the reason. And lastly, though Mendel's work suggested that factors were discrete unit, but he could not provide any physical proof for the existence of factors or what they are made of. Now Mendel, he told that there are genes and these genes were discrete unit. Okay, he suggested this thing, but he could not provide any proof for the existence of the genes. He could not provide any proof for the existence of the genes, as well as he could not say what were they made up of. So these were the several reasons why Mendel's work on inheritance, it remained unrecognized till 1900, though he published his work in 1865. How many reasons are there, students? 4 reasons. First reason, communication at that time was not easy, so he could not widely publicize his work. Second, that his concept of factors as a stable and discrete unit which control the expression of the traits and the alleles, they do not blend with each other, that was not accepted by his contemporaries because of the continuously going variations in the nature. The third reason is the use of the mathematical approach to prove the biological phenomena at that time was totally new and was not accepted by the biologist at the time. So that was one reason. And finally, he suggested that the factors or genes were the discrete units, but he could not provide the physical proof for the existence of the genes, as well as he could not say what were those factors made up of. So these were the several reasons why his work remained unrecognized. Then later his work got recognition. When he got the recognition? He got the recognition in 1900. So Mendel's work on inheritance was individually studied by the 3 scientists. So there were 3 scientists who rediscovered Mendel's work. Who were those 3 scientists? So one was De Vries, another one was Correns and von Schermark. These 3 scientists, they rediscovered Mendel's work. They worked individually. They didn't work together. All these 3 scientists, they worked individually, and finally they were who rediscovered the Mendel's work. Now how that was possible, we will see that. So these are some of the reasons why Mendel's work on inheritance remained unrecognized till 1900, and there were three scientists who rediscovered the Mendel's work in 1900. So how it was possible for them to rediscover that work? We will see that. Now student, I told you that there were certain reasons why Mendel's work remained unrecognized till 1900. So what happened in 1900 that something might have happened in 1900 that his work got rediscovered. So first of all, we knew the name of the three scientists who rediscovered Mendel's work. Who were they? So De Vries, Correns and Teschermark. These were the three scientists who rediscovered Mendel's work. Now, how was Mendel's work rediscovered? What were the changes? Why there were some possibilities that his work got rediscovered? So, how was Mendel's work rediscovered? So, again the same thing. In 1900, three scientists, De Vries, Correns and Teschermark, independently rediscovered Mendel's work on inheritance. They all three worked independently and they rediscovered Mendel's work on inheritance. Now in 1900 there was the advancement in the technology of microscopy, or you can say microscopes were invented. Better and better types of the microscope got invented. So due to the advancement in microscopy, the scientists were able to carefully observe the cell division. Now, when Mendel published his work on inheritance, when did he publish his work? In 1865. But at that time, there was no advancement in the field of the microscopy, or there were not proper microscope when he discovered this. But by 1900, what happened? The advancement took place in the microscopy, and as advancement took place in the microscopy, the scientists were able to observe the process of cell division within the cell. What scientists were able to do? They were able to observe the process of cell division which takes place in the cell. And this all led to the discovery of the structures in the nucleus which appeared to be double, and they divided just before each cell division. So students, first of all, the scientists, due to the advancement in microscopy, were able to observe the process of cell division. Now due to this, it led to the discovery, or you can say nucleus got discovered, and within the nucleus what appeared? The double structure appeared, and this double structure they divided just before the cell division. What was discovered? It led to the discovery of the nucleus, as well as within the nucleus there occurred a double structure, and this double structure it divided just before each cell division process. These double structures, they were called as the chromosomes. What were the double structure called? They were called as the chromosomes. Why were they called as chromosomes? They are color bodies. What are they? Color bodies. They are colored. They can be visualized while staining only. When stained, they appeared to be the colored structures, and therefore they were named as the chromosomes. Chroma means color, soma means body. So colored body which were visualized when stained. Now students, by 1902, the chromosomes movement during the meiosis had been worked out. So now process of cell division took place. Now what they discovered? That they were able to clearly see the process of cell division. In 1902, how the chromosomes move at the time of meiotic cell division, that was discovered. What was discovered? The movement of the chromosomes at the time of the meiosis, that have been found out. Now other two scientists, Walter Sutton and Theodore Boveri, they noted that behavior of the chromosomes was parallel to the behavior of genes. Now what Sutton and Boveri found out? they found out that the chromosomes behavior at the time of cell division is similar to the behavior of the genes. What did they found out? They found out that the Sutton and Boveri, they found out that the behavior of the chromosomes was similar. They found the parallelism, that is similarity between the behavior of the chromosomes and the behavior of the genes, and then they used the chromosome movement to explain the Mendel's law. Now students, Mendel he gave the law by explaining the behavior of the factors. The factors today are called as genes. Now what Sutton and Boveri found out? They found out that the behavior of the chromosomes and the behavior of the genes at the time of the meiotic cell division is similar. So what did they do? To explain the Mendel's law, they studied the behavior of the chromosome and used chromosome movement to explain the Mendel's law. What Mendel used? He used the factors, but Sutton and Boveri, they used the chromosome movement to explain the Mendel's law. Now, they both united the knowledge of chromosomal segregation with Mendelian principles and called it the chromosomal theory of inheritance. So students, who gave the chromosomal theory of inheritance? The chromosomal theory of inheritance was given by Sutton and Boveri. How they formed the chromosomal theory of inheritance? So, they united the knowledge of chromosomal segregation, that is how chromosomes separated at the time of the cell division. With what did they use this knowledge? With the Mendelian principle. So, they combined the Mendelian principles and the segregation of the chromosome, and finally they formed the chromosomal theory of inheritance. What did they form? They formed the chromosomal theory of inheritance. Now before that we know that chromosomes as well as the genes, they occur in pairs. The chromosomes and genes, they occur in pairs. Now the two alleles of a gene pair, where are they located? They are located on the homologous sites on the homologous chromosome. Suppose this is chromosome number 1. Now this is a homologue to chromosome number 1. Now we know that genes occur in pair. So basically there are two alleles in a gene pair. Say for example, one gene, say for example is this gene. So suppose this is a gene A. So its homologue will be located on the same site of the homologous chromosome. Where the homologue will be located? Allele of this gene will be located on the same site of the homologous chromosome. Now students, we know, I told you is the chromosomes and genes occurs in pair. Now in a gene pair, how many alleles are there? 2 alleles. So where are those 2 alleles? The 2 alleles are located on the homologous site on the homologous chromosome. Again I will explain you. Say for example, this is one chromosome, right? So now chromosomes occur in pair. So this is a homologue of this particular chromosome. Now suppose a particular gene, say for example A is located here. Now genes also occur in pair. So its allele will be located at the homologous site, or you can say same site. Suppose this gene is located here. So its allele will be located at the same position in the homologous chromosome. Clear? Now students, we will see the process of meiosis and the germ cells formation. So basically from this we can see the segregation of the chromosomes. Now students, we have earlier studied in 11th standard the process of cell division. There are two types of the cell division. One is mitosis, which occurs in the somatic cells of the body, and another one is the meiosis, which occurs at the time of the formation of germ cells. So here basically the process is the meiosis shown. Now before the cell division occurs, there is a which phase? Interphase, and this interphase is divided into three stages: G1, S and G2. Basically it is during the S phase that the replication of the chromosomes, or you can say DNA replication, take place. So say for example here we will study the behavior of the chromosomes at the time of the meiosis. Of how many chromosomes we are dealing with? 4 chromosomes. Now students, this is one chromosome, blue colored. This is its homologue, which is a which is another chromosome. See how many chromosomes we are studying? We are studying the behavior of the 4 chromosomes. This is one chromosome. This is at the G1 stage of the cell division. Second chromosome, third chromosome and the 4th chromosome. Now between G1 and G2, which phase occur? The S phase occur. That is the synthetic phase, right? During the synthetic phase there is a replication of the DNA. So now see students, this particular chromosome have replicated, this have replicated, this have replicated and this have also replicated. So these 4 chromosomes have replicated. Are you getting my point students? These are the 4 chromosomes which are appeared as the fine threads during the G1 phase. Now between G1 and G2 is the S phase, which is a synthetic phase during which the DNA replication takes place. So now students, here these all chromosomes have replicated, or DNA within them have replicated. Now students, what happens during the anaphase? Meiosis 1 anaphase. So basically what are these chromosomes called as? Bivalent chromosomes. What are they called as? The synapsed homologous chromosome. What are they? Their homologue is formed, that is synapsed homologue chromosomes. And here these are the spindle fiber formed. These are the spindle fibers. So basically the centromere gets attached to the spindle fibers and these chromosomes now will separate. So this is a bivalent. These chromosomes are called as the bivalent one. Now what happens during the meiosis 2 in the anaphase? Now suppose we consider these 2 chromosomes. Suppose we consider these 2 chromosomes. So one of its homologue is here, one of its homologue is here, and how it will get transported? See, these are the germ cells formed. So this part will enter in this germ cell, this part will enter into this germ cell. Similarly, now we consider these 2 chromosomes. So these are behavior during the anaphase 2, meiosis 2, anaphase 2. Are you getting my point? We know meiosis is divided into how many stages? 2 stages. Meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Meiosis 1 is called as the reductional division because there the chromosome number reduces to half. And meiosis 2 is called as which type of reaction? Equational reaction. So basically, suppose this is the main cell which contains how many chromosomes? 2 chromosomes. Sorry, total how many chromosomes are there? 4. Now students, during this anaphase 2, what will happen? One of these enters into one germ cells, another enters into another. Similarly, for this part, we will see that one of it enters into this cell, another into this cell. So this is regarding the behavior of the chromosomes at the time of the meiosis. 4 chromosomes are given and how do they behave at the time of the meiosis? We have seen that. So this is how the Mendel works got rediscovered. Now we will study some points related to the chromosomal theory of inheritance. Now students, Sutton and Boveri, they gave the chromosomal theory of inheritance. So we will see certain points related to the chromosomal theory of inheritance. Now students, the first point. The male and female parents, they pass on to young one only a spermatozoon and ovum respectively. Therefore, it follows that sperms and ovum carry all the hereditary traits. Now students, the male and female parent. The male will form the sperm, the female will form the ovum. Now these sperms and ovum, they fuse and give rise to the zygote, and it is the zygote which forms the young one. So young one gets what? A ovum from the female parent and the sperm from the male parent. This indicates that it is the sperms and ovums which will carry all the heredity traits. All the heredity characters will be present where? In the sperm and ovum. Now students, we know that during the fertilization, the sperms, they only provide the nucleus to the zygote which develops into offspring. Now students, during the fertilization, fusion of the sperm and egg take place, but the sperms only pass the nucleus into the egg which gives rise to the zygote. What does this indicate? That the heredity traits are present inside the nucleus. Listen very carefully. The sperms provides only the nucleus to the zygote, and it is the zygote which develop into young one. So from this we can conclude that all the hereditary traits are present where? Within the nucleus. Now students, what nucleus contains? It contains the chromosomes, and it is the chromosomes which must carry the hereditary traits. So where are hereditary traits located? They are located on the chromosomes, and the chromosomes are located in the nucleus. Now what Sutton suggested? Sutton suggested that the genes are the actual physical hereditary units which are located on the chromosome in a linear order. What Sutton said? He said that actually genes are the hereditary traits. They are transmitted from generation to generation and are responsible for the hereditary characters. Now where are these genes located? So students, these genes are located on the chromosome in a linear order. The genes are located on the chromosomes in a linear order. Now students, listen very carefully. Since there are two chromosomes of each kind in a diploid cell, there must be two genes of each kind, one on each of the two homologous chromosomes. See very carefully. What Sutton suggested? He suggested that basically genes are the hereditary units. Now students, and where are these genes located? On the chromosomes in the linear order. Now students, in a diploid organisms, there are two chromosomes of each kind. Say for example, human beings. Human beings contain how many chromosomes? 23 pairs of chromosomes. So for each kind, total how many kinds are there? 23 kinds. And for each kind, how many chromosomes are there? 2 chromosomes. So total how many chromosomes? 23 pairs, or you can say 46 chromosomes in human beings. Now so, since there are 2 chromosomes of each kind, suppose this is chromosome number 1. So how many chromosomes number 1 will be present? 2. This is 1 and this is 2. So now what chromosomes contain? They contain the genes. So suppose this is a gene on the chromosome number 1. The same gene will be present at the same site on its homologous chromosome. So what it indicates? That there must be 2 genes of each kind, one on each of the 2 homologous chromosomes. Okay, again in a brief manner I will explain you. How many chromosomes are there for each type? 2 chromosomes. Now what is present on the chromosome? Genes. So for each gene how many will be there? 2. So there must be 2 genes of each kind. Total how many chromosomes? Again for one kind there are 2 chromosomes. So basically chromosomes contain what? Gene. So there will be 2 genes for each character which will be located on the homologous chromosomes. Now students, next point. Because the homologous chromosomes separate in the meiosis, it is obvious that the genes of each kind or trait do the same. Now students, we have seen that chromosomes, they segregate at the time of the meiosis. So as the chromosomes segregate, what will be also true? The genes will also do the same. They also segregate at the time of the meiosis. So basically a gamete receives only one chromosome of each type and therefore has one gene of a trait. So what happens? See, in a diploid organisms there are how many chromosomes? For each type there are 2 chromosomes. Now these chromosomes at the time of gamete formation, they segregate. So what happens in a gamete? There is only one chromosome of each kind. So say for example human beings. In a human beings, a normal cell consists of 23 pairs of chromosome. Now when this cell, it forms a gamete. Suppose this is a 23 pairs. Now when this cell, it forms the gamete, what will be the condition? 23 chromosomes will be present in one gamete, 23 in the other. So as the gametes separate at the time of the meiosis, it is obvious that the chromosomes which separate at the time of meiosis, and these chromosomes are the carriers of the genes, same will be true for the genes. It means the genes of each kind, they also separate at the time of meiosis. So we can say that gamete, it contains only one chromosome, and as it contains only one chromosome, it will only contain one gene of a trait. So within a chromosome, it will contain a gene of only one trait. Now we know that diploid organisms will contain which type of chromosomes? Paired chromosomes. But when the gametes are formed, the paired state of the chromosome is lost. So how this paired state of the chromosome returns? So basically the paired state of the chromosomes and hence the genes also, they are restored in the zygote by the fertilization. So how the paired state of chromosome and also of the genes is restored? How? So fertilization takes place, that is male and gametes, female gametes, they will fuse and result in the formation of zygote. So in the zygote, as it takes the fusion of the male and female gametes, the paired state of the chromosomes and the genes is restored. Now students, in a living organism, the phenotypes are far more as compared to the number of chromosomes. Are you getting my point? There are many characters in human beings as compared to the number of chromosomes. We human beings contain how many chromosomes? 23 pairs, or you can say 23 types of chromosomes are present in human beings. But is it like that we only possess 23 characters? No, the phenotypes are very more as compared to the number of chromosomes. A wide variety of phenotypes in living organisms. It shows that there are far more numerous characters than the chromosome. So number of characters are more than the number of chromosomes. And who is responsible for that characters? Genes are responsible. So we can see that the number of genes are far more than the number of chromosomes. So what is concluded from this? Each chromosome must carry several genes on it. Now chromosome, how many chromosomes are there in human beings? 23 chromosomes are there, 23 types of chromosomes. So are there only 23 characters in human beings? No. The number of characters are very much more compared to the number of the chromosomes. So what can we say? We can say that each chromosome contains many genes on it. It is not like that one chromosome means one gene. Suppose if it was the condition, then in human beings only 23 characters would be possible. But is it like that? No. So students, each chromosome contains several genes on it. So thus genes which actually determine the hereditary traits, they are carried by the chromosome. Who carry the genes from parents to offsprings? So chromosomes are the carriers of the genes. So the genes which actually determine the traits are carried by chromosome from parents to offspring. Who are the carriers of the genes? Chromosomes. And who carry these chromosomes? So from parents to offspring, the chromosomes carry the genes. This led to the formation of the chromosomal theory of inheritance by Sutton and Boveri in 1902. So how the chromosomes behave at the time of the meiosis, we will see that, and also we will see the comparison between a gene and a chromosome. Now students, we will see a comparison between a gene and chromosome. Now students, when you see your textbooks, you will see that at one column A is written and on one side B is written. Now we have to determine which column is a gene and which one is a chromosome. So students, A is a gene and B is a chromosome. How did we decided that A is a gene and B is a chromosome? We will see here. But see students, a comparison between a gene and chromosome is given. So students, we will see that gene, it occur in pair, same is for the chromosome, they too occur in the pair. Now the genes, they segregate at the time of gamete formation such that only one of each pair is transmitted to a gamete. That is, of a pair of a gene at the time of gamete formation, a gamete receives of a pair only one gene. Similarly for the chromosome, they also segregate at the time of gamete formation and only one of each pair is transmitted to a gamete. Chromosomes, they occur in a pair at the time of gamete formation. Of a pair of a chromosome, one chromosome moves in one gamete and the second chromosome moves in the other gamete. Now the difference lies here. Independent pairs segregate independently of each other in the gene. Now independent pairs, they segregate independently of each other and one pair segregates independently of the other pair. Now students, here I have written that independent pairs segregate independently of each other, whereas here one pair segregates independently of the another pair. So now here the difference lies, and from this we can decide that A is a gene and B is a chromosome. We will see how. So how can we decide which one of A and B represent a chromosome and a gene? I told you A represents a gene and B represents a chromosome. How have we decided that this is a gene and this is a chromosome only? Now students, we know that genes, they are located at the different positions on the chromosomes. Where are genes located? They are located at the various position on the chromosome in a linear manner, right? We have seen that the genes are arranged linearly on the chromosomes, and that position of a gene on a chromosome is called as what? It is called as gene's locus. Locus means location. So the position of a gene on a chromosome is called as what? It is called as a gene's locus. Now, according to the law of independent assortment, which was derived from the Mendel's dihybrid cross, what it was shown? That allele of each gene pair segregate independently to each other when gametes are formed. So, the alleles of each gene pair, or you can say segregation of one gene is independent of the segregation of the other, or you can say alleles of each gene pair, they segregate independently to each other when gametes are formed. And according to the chromosomal theory of inheritance, we know that each chromosome pair segregates independently. According to law of independent assortment, each gene segregates separately, whereas according to the chromosomal theory of inheritance, each chromosome segregates independently. And from this we can say that this part is a chromosome and a part is a gene. Now students, we will see the behavior of the chromosomes. Now students, we know during the anaphase of meiosis 1, the two chromosome pair can align at a metaphase plate independently of each other. Suppose there are two pairs of the chromosome. Now these two pairs of chromosome at the time of anaphase of meiosis 1, they can align at the metaphase plate independently of each other. That is, alignment of one chromosome is independent of the other chromosome at the metaphase plate. So now students, here we will see the different possibilities of the gametes formed. So students, here I have shown you 4 different colored chromosomes in the cell. Out of this 4 chromosome means there are 2 pairs of chromosome. So students, here you can see there is one long blue and short black chromosome and long red and short green chromosome. Whereas in possibility 2, there is one long blue and short green chromosome and long red and short black chromosome. Now how do they behave at the time of the meiosis process? We will see that. Now students, say for example, you consider this as a chromosome, I say for example, I have given a name chromosome R. Now this is a R chromosome, this is its homologue, which is called as what? It is called as the small r. Similarly, this is another chromosome and it is its homologue, another one. So suppose this is a chromosome Y and this is its homologue, say for example small y. Now students, what are the possibilities in 1? So here you can see that the long blue and the short black chromosome and another one is the long red and short green chromosome, they occur at the same pole. These two chromosomes occur at same pole, these two chromosomes they occur at same pole, which means capital R and capital Y, they occur at one pole, small r and small y, they occur at the other pole. Now students, what happens? Now anaphase 2, when anaphase 1 gets completed, we know that this will go in one cell, this will go in the other cell, right? So one cell will be having blue with black and another cell will be having red with green, right? Now what happens at the anaphase 1? So now at the meiosis 2's anaphase, what occurs? Now this, say for example, this is the bivalent chromosome. So one part of this and another part of this. Similarly, one part of red with the green. So the germ cell, so basically listen very carefully. Here what is the condition? This is which cell? Capital R, right? Blue indicates what? Capital R. Black indicates capital Y. Here red indicates small r and green indicates small y. So here what are the possibilities in the germ cell or in the gametes? So here gametes formed are capital R, capital Y. This is also capital R, capital Y. And here the gametes are small r, small y, small r, small y. I will explain you again, but listen very carefully. These are the two pairs of chromosome. The red colored is a long chromosome whose homologue is this blue colored is one chromosome whose homologue is red chromosome. This black is another chromosome whose homologue is the green chromosome. Now we know that these chromosomes, the red and black and blue and black and red and green, they are located at the same pole. Now at the meiosis II anaphase, suppose this goes in one cell, this is in the another cell. Now what happens? The two chromatids, they get separated. Their chromatids align at here, the chromosomes align at the same pole. Here the chromatids align at the same pole. So here this is one. So this will go in one gamete, this part will go in this gamete. Similarly, the red and green will grow in one gamete and red and green will go in other. Now students, the possibility changes. So here again I am telling you the same possibility, students. Listen very carefully, students. Now the blue stands for what? So basically students, the blue I told it stands for capital R and red stands for small r. Green was for small y, black is for the capital Y. Now students, what possibilities have changed? The positions of the chromosomes. So here you can see the blue was with black, but here in this possibility the long is blue with the short one is the green, and here the long is red with the short one black. So now students, what will happen? The red and green and blue and green and red and black, how are they located? They are located at the same pole. So when the cell division completes, one cell will have red and green, another one will blue and green, and another one will have red and black. Now students, what will happen here? So in the meiosis II anaphase, here the chromosomes are located at the same pole. Here what will happen? Their chromatids get separated at the metaphase plate. So here what is the condition? Here is the capital R with small y, and here small r with capital Y. So students, you can see the different possibilities. So here the gametes are formed. This part, so which gamete? A gamete with capital R, small y, capital R, small y, and this is what condition? Small r, capital Y, small r, capital Y. See students, we will see the conditions here. The first possibility was what? What was the first possibility, students? So capital R was with capital Y and small r was with small y. Right? Say these were the two chromosomes. Now what happened here, students? So these got separated. So which gametes are formed? Capital R and capital Y and small r and small y at the end. And here in the next condition, this was one cell. Similarly, in the second condition, what was there? Capital R was with the small y and small r was with the capital Y. This I am naming the chromosome so that it gets easier for you to recognize. So now when the cells are formed, which gametes are formed? Capital R with small y and small r with the capital Y. So students, here you can see how the chromosomes, they segregate at the time of the meiosis. Now students, from this, Sutton and Boveri, they argued that pairing and segregation of the pair of chromosome would also lead to the segregation of a pair of gene. What Sutton and Boveri argued? They argued that when the pairing and segregation of the chromosome takes place, now what is arranged on the chromosomes? Genes are arranged. So when chromosomes segregate, of course there will be segregation of the genes. So what Sutton did? Sutton united the chromosome segregation with the Mendelian principles and he gave the chromosomal theory of inheritance. How Sutton gave the chromosomal theory of inheritance? He united the chromosome segregation with the Mendelian principle which resulted in the formation of the chromosomal theory of inheritance. So this is the comparison of gene and chromosomes. How did we decided that which one was gene and which one was chromosome, and how the chromosomes behave at the time, or how the segregation of the chromosomes takes place at the time of meiosis? We have seen that. Today I'll end my lecture here. In the next lecture, we will study the experimental proof of the chromosomal theory of inheritance. Sutton and Boveri, they gave the chromosomal theory of inheritance. But who proved that? So basically, we will study the experimental proof of the chromosomal theory of inheritance in our next lecture. Thank you, students.